So as you explained, yes, it's an internal mechanical system in the brain where we translate one language into our mother tongue, and then we translate from our mother tongue into the other target language, which in this case we'll just say is English. Okay, so it's a very important point because that's exactly what our students are going to go through. Okay, and we're talking about junior high school. Okay, please read the handout so that you are familiar with what we are doing, and we're looking at foundation to year 6. So foundation to year 6, we have to understand that the students will learn the vocabulary, they will need to retain it, or they will try to retain it, and through regular use of those sentences, they will remember the language and they will work more automatically. And that's what we want to try to create in the LOT classroom. And one thing to keep in mind is the age of the students, because their brain at a younger age, which is in the foundation years, foundation to year 2, their brain is like a sponge, right? So they can listen to vocabulary and sentences, and they will just remember them, all right? They will just remember them. So as teachers, we need to maximize that opportunity in the foundation years. We need to expose them to as much language as possible, as much culture, as much writing as possible, because they will be able to remember it. And after that, then it is a matter between year 2 to year 6. It's a matter of making it more playful, but as well as more dogmatic, okay, more regular and more structured, okay, like a typical lesson. All right. So great comment. Just keep in mind that yes. Okay, so here what we can see is that this course is ELA 522, which means it's for final year or third year students, and the primary specialization is languages other than English, which means that you will have either Chinese, French, I think Indonesian. We have an Indonesian student. We have 2 Greek students who want to become teachers of their target language. We call it a target language. Okay, so that's what the structure of the students are like. Okay, and my name is there, Nicholas Gromick. Please call me Nicholas or Dr. Nick. Okay, I don't like to be called Mr. Gromick. It sounds very strange to me, but that's personal choice. So we waited a little bit because I thought some students were going to come, and we would have some students in the classroom, which obviously we don't, and we were going to do some self-introduction. And this is why your microphone is important, because I wanted you to introduce yourself. I don't want to talk about this in particular, but I wanted to know more about you. Okay? So if you ever have a chance to come on campus and come to this classroom, that would be great, because we can participate in a discussion of every topic that we have to do for this unit. We're not going to talk about, I wanted to know about your placement background to see if you have been to a school and if you were able to teach your specialization language, all right? So that just I knew what your experiences were, okay? So just let me know that. My name is Dr. Nick. My phone number is there, 0889 466 908. But it's best to email me. I'm on my computer 8 hours a day, from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock, except when I'm teaching, obviously. But I will check my email all the time. So if you have any question, any concern that you want to clarify, or you want extra readings or some directions, please email me. It's the fastest way to access me. All right? And I will respond within 5 to 10 minutes, depending if I teach or not. So the unit description, it talks about LOT, and as I said, it's Foundation to Year 6, early primary years. We're in this unit. We are looking at pedagogy. The keyword is pedagogy, and one of your assignments is technology. All right? And here are the learning outcomes. There are 6 learning outcomes, and they can be summarized as contextual framework, which is the Australian context. And then we have language learning. How do we learn a language? And we've already briefly touched upon that we understand that there's a mental, mechanical process happening for the early years and for anyone learning a language. Then we have learner characteristics and impacts on curriculum and teaching practice. What we're looking at here is we're looking more at the character of a student. Some students have learning needs. Okay, some students will need more assistance, meaning that every student is different and they each have a very different way of wanting to learn something. There will be an average of how things are learned, but in Australia, we have a student-centered approach, which means that on average, all students will have some differences in learning, preferences for learning. So we need to be aware of that. Then we have to promote active language use and development, which is something you have to consider. Planning and applying effective load pedagogies, that will be your assignment 2. And then apply relevant technologies, which will be your assignment 3. All right? You can get all of this from your unit of work, all right, so that you can become familiar with the content. So overall, we have 4 modules. First one is conceptual framework, which is what is a load, but what is a load within an Australian context, okay? Because let's say when I went to school in France, and my first language was English, and my second language was Spanish, right? What I'm trying to say is that in every country, there is a second language learning option, right? So it's not just a load, but every country has a type of a load. So we need to be aware of that. And so we have to think of how is that load or that second language taught within that particular educational context. And so in this case, we're looking at an Australian education context, and that's very important. Then we look at the perspective on language learning, and we're looking at language acquisition and retention. So this difference needs to be made because most of the literature will talk about language acquisition. That means, how do we acquire a language? That's fine. But what I'm interested in is how do we retain that knowledge, okay? For example, I can learn, yesterday we were in class and we had 2 Greek teachers, and I explained to them, I said, you can teach me some vocabulary today, I will acquire it, which means I will remember it. But if you ask me to repeat that vocabulary next week when we meet, I may not remember it. Therefore, the retention of that language didn't function. So that's what we need to be careful about. And this is where teaching strategies help us, because we can use teaching strategies to make students learn the vocabulary, and then we can use teaching strategies to make them remember it for long term. All right? Which is the whole goal of teaching a language. Then we have the teaching repertoire, which is your teaching strategies, your teaching methodology, all right, or your approach. And then finally, module 4 will be material technologies, which is selection and evaluation. So here you can, for assignment 3, you can select any technology that you want. It's not a difficult assignment, but don't use YouTube. YouTube will not be accepted. So you will have to find some online resources that are effective for learning a language from Foundation to Year 6. Okay, it's up to you to decide. All right. So, your knowledge base for this unit, right? What we really need to understand is ACARA, because all the information that we need is in ACARA, which is the Australian Curriculum Assessment Reporting Authority. It's all there. So if you need to understand the policies behind language teaching, ACARA will have it, and then each state and territory has its own interpretation of ACARA. So that's very important. And next, if we want to do some unit design and some lesson planning, Akara is the source of our information that we need. Okay, so I'm going to look at Akara today very briefly, but you need to go there for homework. You need to go there and start really understanding what Akara is all about for your specific language. All right, and for today and for this week, or until next Wednesday, you need to read Keelan chapter 2. Because, and it should be available online through the library for you for free, because chapter 2 from Keelan, from this book, provides a really simple perception of teaching methodologies and teaching strategies, and it's a really good start, okay? It's really simple and it's a good start. It's well explained. So as teachers, we need to know Akara, but we also need to know the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, right? Or ETSOLs. And ETSOLs play a very important role in your placement. So when you go on placement, this is how CDU evaluates you, all right? Through the ETSOL Professional Standards for Teachers. On the side there, you have a quote by Keelan, which is that the Australian curriculum places a very heavy emphasis on content, so teachers should be left in little doubt about what they are required to teach. You are required to teach content, right? Now, in the case of language teachers, we have the content. I'm French, I have the French language in my head, and I know it. But what we need to understand is that we don't necessarily know how to teach it to someone else. Right? And this is what we need to discuss in this unit, is what are the best methodologies or the best practices for teaching a target language to an Australian context. And what we mean by an Australian context is a group of students that have no knowledge of that second language. Okay? So that's what we need to look at, and that's what we need to understand. So in this unit, and I'm sorry this is a little bit faint or not bright enough, but that will be available online. What we're focusing on is Professional Standard 1, which is get to know your students. You have to know your students. So you have to find out who are your students with learning needs, who are your students with learning challenges, who are your students with a second language skill. So not only do they know how to speak English, but they may be fluent in Chinese. Okay, and we need to assess whether they are fluent at speaking or whether they're fluent at reading and writing. These are two different skills. Okay, and then we may have a student who's fluent in French, who has a low level of English ability and no knowledge of Chinese. All right, so we need to know our students first, and this is there. Okay, and this is part of assignment 2. The other one is know the content and how to teach it, and I've already explained that. It's easy to know Chinese, all right? You are probably familiar with Chinese or your specific language, but how do we teach it? Okay? And then the final one, which is assignment 2, is plan for a, excuse me, I can't read from that part. Is plan for and implement effective teaching and learning, which is what you will have to do for assignment 2, which is to design your own unit of work. All right? So that's what we're focusing on for this unit here. Okay, so it's an example. You can read the whole document. To read the whole document, you need to type ETSOL standards, 1-page PDF, and this should appear. Okay? This should appear, and you can have a look at it. All right. This is Akara. This is the Akara standards. All right. And as a language teacher, as a teacher of any subject, actually, if you're teaching science, English, biology, math, you need to know Akara. You will need to know it for your major and your minor. Okay. And you need to be able to use it effectively to retrieve the information that you need. So teachers have to develop students' general capabilities and develop their understandings of broad course curriculum priorities. Right? And Akara has these aspects. They have the general capabilities listed here, and they have the cross-curriculum priorities listed there. And so as a teacher, we need to understand how they all fit in so that we can design very good units. Okay? I hope this is clear so far. Okay? Just send a yes in your chat so that I can hear the beep. Thank you. I heard the beep. I hope it says yes. I don't know if it says no or if it has a comment. I have to change screen, but I heard the beep and I'm assuming you said yes. All right. So Keelan explained something to us, another thing. He says the future of our society depends on students developing knowledge, skills, and values that will enable them to contribute to sustainable patterns of living. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake there. That's good. All right. We need to understand that we need to develop their skills and their knowledge. But last year, as I was teaching some units, I realized that the role of the teacher, that is your role as a teacher, is to provide successful learning experiences so that the students can develop the required skills, knowledge, and well-being to become effective participants in society. And there's a slight difference here, okay? Because the focus is on successful learning experiences. And let me explain. Let's say that the students have to make a paper plane. It's very simple, right? Make a paper plane. And then I walk around the classroom and I say, that's not good, that's okay, very good. All right? The students that got that's not good and the students that got that's okay, their level of confidence will be reduced. And they may not become successful learners. Which means that you are working as a unit, you will prepare to become specialist teachers for primary years. Now you have to keep in mind that those students are going to go to secondary school and eventually university. Now, if they don't have a successful learning experience in your Chinese class, when they go to secondary school, they're going to say, you know what, I didn't enjoy my teacher in Chinese, and I'm not going to keep going with learning Chinese. They gave up. But it's not because they don't have the skills to learn Chinese. They could be very good at learning languages, all right? But because of that experience in primary school, they gave up. And it's not just in the language school that we have to think about. It's in mathematics, in science, in everything, in engineering. We need to provide the students with confidence, with successful learning experiences so they can gain the confidence and they want to engage and learn more. Because their education doesn't stop at the end of year 4. If you know your methodologies of teaching, you will know that learning is a lifelong learning process. So if they gave up in grade 4, they may have given up for lifelong learning. And so we need to reduce that problem, okay? So it's what I'm saying is that it doesn't really make a lot of sense right now, but as we go through this unit, you will see it's very important. If we want to engage the students, it's important to have successful learning experiences, all right? Because it will last for a long time, okay? So the course, thank you for the beep, I heard it. Thank you for the beep. Course progress. So we have a discussion board which is not assessed. You can do some of the activities that are there and you can ask some questions there, but I remind you, please contact me by email. Don't put something on the discussion board and expect me to visit that discussion board because I may not go to the discussion board for another week. So if it's important, just email me, okay? Thank you. Assignment 1 is a position paper. Okay, it's 2 beeps, so I'm going to check what's being said there. Okay, Miss Flora is saying okay. All right, thank you so much for that. So assignment 1 is a position paper, and for the position paper, you need to understand the language policy of Australia. Remember, you are teachers of a language that you're very successful at, fluent in, but you will be teaching it in an Australian context. And therefore, to do that, we need to be aware of the policy. Now, this is a big document. This is for the Northern Territory. Don't panic, okay? It's fairly light reading. I know you can't see the fine print. But we need to, and it's not that complicated. All we need to do as teachers is be aware of the general policy of language teaching in Australia so that we can work within that context, okay? And so as you read about it and as we discuss it, you'll see that it's not that complex. It's fairly easy to understand and it is logical, okay? Assignment 2, you have to prepare a teaching plan. And this is for you to prepare in advance for when you will go on placement. All right? So if you go on placement at a school where you will be required to teach Chinese, then you will have your unit of work and lesson plans ready to start teaching when you go on placement. Okay? And then assignment 3, which is prepare a product review. And as I've said, assignment 3 is fairly easy. It's basically how do we use technology. All right? So for my assignment 3, I could explain how I designed this PowerPoint. I have tried to make it colorful. I have used pictures, and I try to make it engaging for my adult students. You are adults, all right? So I'm hoping that this type of PowerPoint is effective for the learners, okay? You will be primary school, so you will have to find other forms of use of technology, and you may want to use software available online or some apps available for software for computers or for mobile phones, okay, or laptop, iPads, where your students can sit down and start playing with the language, okay? So it's not that complicated. It's up to you to decide which one you want to do, but please don't use YouTube because that is fairly easy. Your first assignment, which is your position paper, is due at the end of week 5, which is April 4th. All right? So we've already done week 1 today, so you only have 4 weeks left. Okay? So it's very important that you ask me some questions, that we discuss the policies, that we discuss what teaching is all about within an Australian context, so that you can write your position paper and you have an idea of what it is that you want to discuss. Okay? So that's very important. On the last slide, I had a topic for discussion, and I wish your microphone would work. And that's why, I encourage you to come to school at CDU, because here's a discussion, and we discussed that yesterday. Knowledgeable teachers who lacked the necessary pedagogical skills were not effective. Okay, so even if you have the content knowledge, but you're not very effective at teaching, okay, you're not effective. The students are not going to connect. But then there's also another problem. Neither were skillful teachers who lacked the necessary content knowledge. Okay? So it's saying that, as I've explained, we can be fluent in the language, we can know the language, all right? But if we don't understand the pedagogy, we may not be effective teachers, and our students are not going to engage. And that's why we need to find forms of engagements. We need to understand best teaching practices to engage our students, right? Because then we can become effective. But there's the other problem, is that a skillful teacher, that is a teacher who knows how to teach, who knows how to engage students, right? If they don't have the knowledge of the language, and they're not fluent at the language, they will not be effective. Okay? So this is something that I wanted to discuss. I can give you an example, a personal example. I can speak Japanese. okay? I went to Japan, I worked there, and I learned the language, okay? So I understand it, I know how it works, right? But that does not necessarily mean that I know how to teach it to primary school students, okay? That's what it means to be a language teacher, is to be able to know the content and to know how to teach. And as we saw with Dakara, it's very much content focused. First, you must know the content. And there's a reason why there is a focus on teachers knowing the content. And it's very simple, it's very logical. I'm not sure if you saw this today, but I didn't worry about my slides so much. I read it, but I didn't worry about it. I let you worry about what you see. Right? So I know the content. I don't need to worry about what's on the PowerPoint. It's there. I know it's there. I don't have to worry about it. And what this allows me to do is that it allows me to relax and to pay attention to students' behaviors. So if this class was full of students, I would be able to teach these students just as I am teaching you right now, because I know the content. And so now I'm focusing more on my teaching practice. I'm paying more attention to my students because I know the content. Right? And that's what you need to aspire to. That's what you need to excel at. Knowing the language for you is easy. But now you have to be confident in your ability to teach the language and to apply base teaching strategies so that students are engaged. I hope that makes sense, because that's basically the focus of this unit. Okay? So to succeed, you need to read the suggested text. So today I suggested Killen chapter 2. You need to read it, okay? Because you need to demonstrate that in your writing you are aware of Killen chapter 2. Come to class or attend Collaborate session. So I thank you for attending this Collaborate session. I will go to my room after this, and I will attend another Collaborate session for some of the students that are doing distance education, either from Queensland, Victoria, and they want to study online, so that's okay. You need to become familiar with Akara, and I will explain that next week. And in preparation for program planning, right? You need to prepare for lesson and ask questions. It's very important. My role as a teacher is to assist you understand what you will do as a teacher when you graduate. For me to do that, so make the most of that opportunity. I'm here to assist you. That's my role. So you need to ask me questions. You need to seek clarification. If there's something you don't understand, don't be shy, ask me. Send me an email. That's my role. All right? To assist you, to guide you. So please ask questions, okay? And prepare assignments early, seek clarifications, because most students will wait until the end of week 5 to write their assignment and send it to me. Right? Try not to do that. Prepare for your assignments, do your reading, and you should be okay. All right? So my email is there, nicholas.broming@cbu.edu.au, and my phone number is there. If you have any questions anytime, or if you have any concerns, just email me straight away. Okay? Thank you, Miss Laura. That's what I want to read. Oh, Miss Cecilia Sue, how are you? Sorry, I didn't see you coming in. All right. So this is the end of this class. As you can see, we cover a lot of ground in the class, and so we need to do the reading. Next week, we will start looking at Australian policies in terms of language learning. If you look at assignment 1, I think it is, you should be able to access this document there. You may want to have a look at it. Don't read the whole document. It's 90 pages long. I expect you to read the whole document by next week. But read chapter 2 and then start looking at this, because we are in the Northern Territory and that's the context in which we will teach. Okay, so we need to be aware of that context. And after reading this one, you will have a better idea on how to write assignment 1. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to close this PowerPoint and I'm going to stop the recording. And if you have any questions, please ask. If you don't have any questions, I will go back to my office and I will prepare for the next Collaborate session for this year. Okay?